myself, I had to come out here and talk a little bit more about this whole idea of Trump sending a letter, an open letter to Fed Chair Jerome Powell, calling him too late, saying that he should immediately lower interest rates. And the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, came out today with a press conference talking about this exact thing. Like, too late, Powell. Open letter going to him saying, you got to lower interest rates. Look at all these nations out there with these lower interest rates. And it would be this really awesome thing for the American people and everybody out there. And it's absolutely ridiculous to not lower interest rates immediately. And there's no real good reason why it is that Jerome Powell is keeping these interest rates elevated. And this is what is being pushed out there pretty continuously. And anyway, here, let me just play what the press secretary had to say here.
Again, the one problem that remains is high interest rates for the American people. The American people want to borrow money cheaply, and they should be able to do that. But unfortunately, we have interest rates that are still too high. So the president sent this note to the Fed chair today.
All right. The American people want to borrow money at a low interest rate. Why? So they can spend that money. Why else would you borrow it, right? So ultimately what she is saying is that the American people want to borrow money at a cheap interest rate so they can spend that money into the economy, and this would be a really wonderful thing. And I find it pretty interesting how later on in this, I mean, we can continue to listen to it, but I left a link down in the description for you guys. She goes on to talk about how an awesome, strong, and hot economy this is. And yet, what would be the reasoning behind lowering interest rates if you're running good? Like, if you are running awesome, got a good economy, it's awesome and hot, why would you want to mess that up? Here's the thing. If you lower interest rates, what are you going to do? You're going to increase consumption. When you increase the consumption, you are going to cause inequality. Now, I'm going to take this back to Cantillon essay on economic theory. Now, a lot of you know that I follow this essay and I follow it deeply as far as the underlying economic forces that Cantillon was describing back in the day. If you can recognize some of those things that are taking place today, you don't have to reinvent the wheel on what's going on. It gives you a much better understanding of why some of the things are taking place like they are. So let's just take, for example, some of the things that Cantillon is talking about within this chapter 6, right? This is the increase and decrease of money, of the quantity of money in the state. And it goes on to say this, right? Right? It says this, and this is talking about a silver mine for increase of money. It goes, the increase of hard money comes from the gold and silver mines within the state. The owners of these mines, the entrepreneurs, the smelters, refiners, and all the other workers will increase their expenses in proportion to their profits. Their households will consume more meat, wine, beer than before. They will become accustomed to wearing better clothes, having finer linens, and to having more ornate houses and other desirable goods. Consequently, they will give employment to several artisans who did not have much work before, and who, for the same reasons, will increase their expenditures. All this increased expenditures on meat, wine, wool, etc., necessarily reduces the share of the other inhabitants in the state who do not participate in the wealth of the mines in question. Did you guys get that? This is Cantillon talking about what happens when new money comes into the state and who has first access to that money, and what ends up happening to not only the prices, but the people at the end of the line. They suffer the most from this. This is how inequality is created, is by the new money coming into the system. When you lower interest rates, what you are doing is encouraging debt. Debt is new money. Depending on what you do with it is what ends up happening to you personally, whether you turn that into a positive or negative for yourself. Right? Goes on to say, necessarily reduces the share of the other inhabitants in the state who do not participate in the wealth of its mines in question. The bargaining process of the market, with the demand for meat, wine, and wool, etc., being stronger than usual, will not fail to increase their prices. This higher prices will encourage farmers to employ more land to produce the following year, and these farmers will profit from their increased prices and will increase their expenditures on their families like the others. Oh, so now everybody else is starting to increase their prices because, well, they have to pay more for everything. Does this sound familiar? Those who will suffer from these high prices and increased consumption will be, first of all, and this is pretty trippy for a lot of people out there to hear this, right? Those who will suffer from these high prices, increased consumption will be, first of all, the property owners. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Property owners during their times of their leases, then their domestic servants, and all the workmen on fixed wages, earners who support their families on a salary. All the people who have a steady income that are not getting the increase in from the expenditures being spent out there. All those people who have to maintain the same price or same wages that they are getting, whether it's rent from properties or the wages that they are getting. If they maintain those same price, that same wage, that same rent, then all the prices go up. They suffer from that. So not only the property owners, but everybody who's on a fixed income. You see the problem that's faced here? They all must diminish their expenditures in proportion to the new consumption, which will compel a large number of them to immigrate and to seek a living elsewhere. The property owners will dismiss many of them, right? Lay them off or fire them, and the rest will demand a wage increase in order to live as before. It is in this manner that a considerable increase of money from the mines increases consumption, and by diminishing the number of inhabitants, greater expenditures result by those who remain. You think about the people who are spending the most money. Those who are remaining, those who are spending the money, those are the top 20%. Top 10% really do 50% of all the consumption. The people who have first access to the money and the people who are spending that money are the people who are going to be the ones who enjoy the money, the prices, and the experience before everybody else at the end of the line begins to suffer. It's very important to understand how this is going down. This is something else to think about. This gradual increase in consumption of these industrial inhabitants will raise the price of land and labor, but the industrious people who are eager to acquire property will not at first increase their expenditures. You see, there is a group of people out there who understand that if you are industrious and you are able to earn an income and you can maintain a standard of living and you can earn extra money, whatever extra that is, beyond that of your living expenses, and you can save that money, these are the people who wait and have accumulated a large sum from which that they can draw a secure interest income independent of their occupation. Think about that. That's the capitalists that are out there. They worked, kept their living expenses incredibly low, saved a bunch of money, moved that into something that has a secure interest beyond that of their what did he put it? They're independent of their occupation. See, this is what's incredible out there, is to know that there was people way back in the day who were definitely entrepreneurs, capitalists, who were trying to put themselves in a position that would then be separated from the poor. This is how the rich were separating themselves from the poor. There's another quote in here I wanted to read to you guys. And this is coming out of, where is it? Right here. This is part of chapter 8 in that essay. Part 2, chapter 8. When abundant money raises products to honest prices, the inhabitants eagerly work to acquire them, although they do not show the same eagerness to acquire food and merchandise beyond what is needed for their maintenance. You see that? They only work as hard as they need to and nothing more. And this has been going on for centuries, hundreds and hundreds of years. There are a small group of people who will cut back on their expenses, get as low as expenses that they have, their living standard as low as possible, get their income as high as possible, and then move that income into a secure interest of return so they can have an income beyond that of their occupation. That's how they separated themselves from the poor. Not everybody. Some people had at first access to the money through the mines, like they were the mine owners. You might have been, like in this sense, being part of the banking system. Now, something very good in this essay, right, is the two methods for increasing the amount of money in the state. This is good stuff, right? Because you think about it, if you increase the money in the state, if you lower interest rates, debt increases. Debt is money. If you increase the money in the state, what you will do is you will increase the consumption. You increase the consumption, supply-demand imbalances come into play, prices move up, people at the bottom of the line suffer the most. This is how inequality is grown. Ever-increasing amounts of new money causes the inequality to increase. If you lower the interest rates, you increase the debt. The debt is money. This is how the efforts of pushing the Federal Reserve into lowering interest rates will create more inequality. All right? There's really nothing you can do to stop it at this point, but that pushes it further. It pushes it harder. All right. He goes on to say, again, this is Cantillon's essay on economic theory. It says, I still have to mention two other methods of increasing the amount of money circulating in a state. The first is when entrepreneurs and private individuals borrow money from foreign correspondents at interest, and when foreigners send their money into the state to buy shares of government stock. Bang. Right? Let me read that one again. Again, hundreds of years ago, Cantillon talked about the biggest way, one of the biggest ways to increase the amount of money in the state. And that's when foreigners, let me read it again here. Hold on. It's when foreigners send their money into the state to buy shares of government stock. This is like the treasury bonds, right? As the Federal Reserve is now the participant as far as the central bank is the U.S. Treasury that is issuing out tons of treasuries that the foreign purchasers are buying. This is where the new money is coming from. It doesn't necessarily come from the Federal Reserve, which does buy the treasury bonds and does issue out the liabilities, but there's also a whole lot of purchasing coming from the foreign countries, foreign corporations, foreign people, right? Increasing new money, debt issuance, U.S. Treasury debt issuance. It's not necessarily the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates, which does have a big part of it, but the U.S. Treasuries being issued, ever-increasing amounts of government debt. This is increasing the money supply. When people buy the U.S. Treasuries, they use U.S. Treasuries like their dollars to make transactions appear. Okay? Not to appear, they actually do transactions with them. It goes on to say this. Okay? This is often when the foreigners buy the government stock. This is often amounts to very considerable sums on which the state must annually pay interest to these foreigners. These methods of increasing the money in the state do not make it more abundant and diminish the rate of interest. This lowers the rate of interest, but it doesn't make it more abundant. With this money, the entrepreneurs in the state find it possible to borrow more cheaply, to provide work, and to establish factories with the anticipation of profit. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Okay. The artisans and all those whose hands this money passes through consume more than they would have done if they had not been employed by the means of this money. They consume more, right? The artisans and all those whose hands this money passes through consumes more than they would have done if they had not been employed by the means of this money. This consequently increases prices just as if money belonged to the state, and through the increased consumption or expenditures, this causes public revenues derived from taxes on consumption are increased. You see how the government was like, well, maybe we should push this stuff. We can increase the taxes, right? But this is not making us any more abundant. Right? This consequently increases the prices. Well, what happens when you increase the prices? You're separating the rich from the poor. Okay? And just as this money had belonged to the state. Because it doesn't really belong to you. You have borrowed the money. It doesn't really belong to you. This is sad. Just as the money belonged to the state through the increased consumption or expenditures, this causes public revenues derived from the taxes on consumptions are increased. Money lent to the state in this manner brings many advantages with it, but in the end, it's always burdensome and harmful. The state must pay the interest to the foreigners every year, and aside from this loss, the state is at the mercy of the foreigners who can always cause trouble if they decide to withdraw their capital. How many people talk about China pulling out of the U.S. debt market? I mean, this has been the same problem that has been experienced hundreds of years ago. How else was Cantillon able to describe it? Surely they will want to withdraw their capital when the state needs it the most, as when preparing for war and defeat is feared. The interest paid to the foreigner is always much more considerable than the increase in public revenue caused by the money. Right? The interest paid to the foreigner is always much more considerable than the increase in public revenue caused by this money. One can observe these loans passing from one country to another according to investors' confidence in the states to which they are sent. But in reality, states that have paid heavy interest on these loans for many years will often find themselves bankrupt and unable to repay the capital. This is the road that it leads down. It's eventually going to happen at some point. Who knows how far out? When trust is shaken, shares of public stock fall, foreign shareholders do not like to sustain losses, preferring to content themselves with collecting interest while waiting for confidence to return. But sometimes it does not return. In declining states, the principal objective of public administrators usually is to restore confidence in order to attract foreign loans. Does that sound familiar? Right? What's happening, dude?
Hey.
Want to say hi?
Hi.
We're in the middle of it, but I'll be in just a minute. If the ministers do not act in bad faith and keeps its obligations, the money of the subjects will circulate without interruption. In this case, money from abroad has the power of increasing the quantity of money in the state. This is what we are experiencing. Hey, mamas. Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right on. How was it?
It's good.
Good? Hang on. I'll be in just a minute.
Okay.
Oh. Cool. Sparkling water. Perfect timing. All right. I'm going to be done here in just a second. I got one more part to go down here because this is good stuff, guys. I mean, once you have seen these underlying economic forces, it makes everything start to line up and make more sense on how it is that not only the government is acting, reacting, behaving, but then also how it is that you need to interpret this stuff for yourself. It goes on like this. But the borrowing road, which holds an advantage in the present, leads to a dead end and is but a flash in the pan. To restore a poor state with a shortage of money, a constant and real balance of trade is needed on an annual basis. You need to import less stuff than you export. We import more stuff than we export. And that's the problem that we are going to face, is that we can't seem to reverse that no matter what we do. Right? And all the ideas of being able to do that, it doesn't happen. It's not going to. Right? A constant and real balance of trade is needed on an annual basis, as is the development through navigation of the articles of manufacturers produced cheaper and thereby suitable for exportation, meaning that you got to produce it better and cheaper than everybody else, and you got to be able to ship it to them cheaper than anybody else. Merchants are the first to make their fortunes, then lawyers, right, some things never change. Merchants are the first to make their fortunes, then lawyers may get part of it. The prince and tax collectors get a share at the expense of all others and distribute their graces as they please. When money becomes too plentiful in the state, luxury will follow. The state will fall into poverty. Every single time. And this is why I keep saying it over and over again. It's the luxurious experience. It's the luxuries. It's the people who want a nicer house, nicer car, nicer clothing, nicer experiences with their vacations and everything else that increases the consumption. Increase in consumption is increase in the prices. Increasing prices makes it harder at the people at the end of the line. Inequality is found, and it's due to the luxurious experience. And I don't mean to make it like a bad or evil thing. I want a new car. I want the new Camaro. I want to be able to travel around and do all the great things and have wonderful experiences in my life as well. I don't want to look at it as the negative thing. All I'm trying to tell you is that the underlying economic forces are telling you that if you go down that road and everybody else goes down that road, it will cause inequality. Lower the interest rates, you will increase the amount of people who are out there buying, consuming, causing prices to increase, causing the inequality. And this is exactly what Trump is asking for when he is screaming at Powell to lower interest rates. And none of that really makes sense. What does make sense is that if you can raise the inflation expectations, you can lower the real interest rates. If you lower the inflation expectations, you will raise the real interest rates. Putting that expectation into the markets is what is taking place. The Federal Reserve hardly moves. What tariffs? We don't know yet. All these ideas of misunderstanding, uncertainty, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, all that stuff is creating the environment in which that they can use the narrative against you. And when I think about this relentless, constant push to tell Powell to lower interest rates makes zero sense to me, since Powell has one vote out of 12 on the FOMC. What is it that Powell is going to do but beg everybody to fall in line and say you have to vote a particular way? Does anybody understand the FOMC? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do, especially those who follow the channel here, but I really have to ask the question out there to the broader sense of people who are listening to Donald Trump screaming at Powell to lower interest rates, thinking, how is it that Powell does that, since there's 11 other voting members, 5 alternates, and two advisors who all participate in the FOMC, and Jerome Powell is merely the spokesperson for that group of people? What in the hell is Donald Trump even talking about? None of it, he doesn't make any sense. If you understand how the Federal Reserve sets interest rates, all the stuff that Donald Trump is talking about literally makes zero sense. Even the people who are discussing it and debating it and talking about it, they don't make any sense. Because at the end of the day, when somebody says the Federal Reserve should be lowering interest rates by, as Donald Trump puts it, a lot, right? But if you were to put a number on it, they should lower it by 2 percentage points. How is that in relation to the Fed, to the neutral interest rate? The Fed funds rate in relation to the neutral interest rate? That would be the very next question somebody should ask, because that's going to say whether or not the economy is, or the financial conditions are going to be accommodating or restricting. Because it's all in relation to the neutral interest rate. Nobody seems to want to talk about it in this fashion, but this is the reality of the situation, considering that the Federal Reserve has talked about all this stuff inside of their speeches that nobody really seems to read, except for the uneducated economist in the crew, right? The rest of us here on the UE channel, we will read through these speeches all the time. We break them down, find the evidence of how it is that they are admitting to using their words against us. Donald Trump is playing the same game. It's part of it. It's I don't really honestly believe that he truly wants to lower interest rates. If he did, he would explain why. He doesn't explain it in a sense that any kind of real sense. Even the fact that he's all this poking fun at Jerome Powell and calling him names and saying he's too late and all this other stuff. If you understand how the Fed operates, none of that makes sense at all. It's just what do you expect Jerome Powell to do, bro? He has one vote out of 11 other people who are going to vote. And they all have their independent idea of what it is that needs to happen with monetary policy. And if you truly listen to them, you can get a much better understanding of what it is that the Federal Reserve is thinking about and strategizing on. I mean, there was a time, do you realize there was a time when the Federal Reserve would want to lower interest rates to not only increase consumption, but to also increase increase corporate investment by corporations increasing their investment into their operations. They buy equipment, build properties, hire people. By hiring people, you get more people working, more people working, more people consuming. More people consuming causes the supply demand imbalances, and you find inflation from it. This is how the Federal Reserve used to try and control inflation, is by manipulating the interest rates to manipulate the employment rate. Because more people working cause more inflation, less people working, less inflation. Well, they found that system broke. Go and look it up. The neutral rate of employment. The Federal Reserve has a neutral rate of employment where the employment doesn't create an inflationary or deflationary scenario. It's when the employment is neutral. The neutral employment rate was very close to zero, meaning no matter how low you got unemployment, they could not find inflation. Since the Obama administration, we have had historically low unemployment. Except for the brief moment during the pandemic, we've had historically low unemployment since the Obama administration and failed to produce an inflationary scenario on account of it, except for the COVID. I mean, all the way through the great financial crisis, leading all the way up to COVID, we could not find an inflationary scenario. The Federal Reserve could not create one, no matter how low the unemployment got. Remember, Trump was screaming about it. Best unemployment numbers in 60 years. Couldn't find inflation, though. At the same time, he's screaming there's no inflation. The Fed should be printing money, much like he's doing right now. And this is what creates the problems that we end up seeing with the inequality. All right, let's take a look at some of these super chats. Go answer some of these questions. We got the first one from Solomon. It says, thank you for the 10. It says, in the end goal is stable coins and negative interest rates. Explain how they will get to that. If they did, wouldn't Bitcoin and gold will fly and be a flight to safety? Well, I mean, I think intuitively we would think that because we understand what it is that's happening, especially with the stable coins, and then the idea of moving into safety by buying into something that is going to be outside of that third-party claim. Stable coin is essentially locking you into the system, you know, taking cash out of the system and then locking you in with the stable coin. However, most people probably won't even realize that they have been shifted into a stable coin environment. In fact, like, it's happening now, and I don't think anybody really cares. And so, like, this is the moment that people would be flying to Bitcoin and gold for that safety, and they're not doing it, right? Like, the shift has taken place now. Nobody notices, nobody cares, and even if they did notice and care, they're not doing it anyway. The handful of us who are doing it, we were doing it anyway because of other reasons. This just enhances that reason why we're doing it. So you have to think, the people who are buying gold and silver and Bitcoin for the reasons that they were buying them, this idea of a stable coin only enhances that idea, but it may attract a few more, but for the most part, I'd imagine everybody else doesn't even know it's happening, doesn't even care. Yeah, as long as they can swipe their card and everything goes through, they're good. Yeah. And so thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate it too, man. Thank you. Did I miss one back there? Where is it? It must be down here. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Let me scroll through this real quick. Why? Well, oh, I see. I think it was just that one super chat. Let me fix this thing, man. Why is this thing always falling down on me? There we go. All right. Let's see. Let me back it up here a little bit. All right. Deplorable. They will always have an underclass because it's always been a power dynamic. They need to keep power. So they know how you swing they will keep it underclass. Yeah, see, I mean, I don't believe in the idea that they keep it or force it or cause it to happen. If you put 100 people on an island and you threw a bunch of money into that island with 100 people on it and it was dispersed evenly amongst them all, it would only, and say, hey, use this for a medium of exchange, it would only be a matter of time before a whole group of them would be completely out of money and a small group of them would have it all. And I think that would be the case every single time. I think you could probably perform that test 7,000 times in a row and you would end up with the same results. All right. The only way that you would prevent that from happening is if you educated every single person on the island of exactly how inequality is created, how the money flow works, Cantillon effect kind of stuff. If you were to teach everybody on the island exactly what is happening, I still think it would happen. Actually, I still think even if you knew it, it would still take place. Because there's nothing you can do. You would end up, somebody would have some sort of skill or understanding or industriousness above everybody else, and therefore they would be able to acquire more, and that would be it. If you can acquire more, somebody else is not going to be able to get in. It would just start creating the inequality, no matter what you do. It's not a system that is designed to create inequality. Inequality is created because of human instincts, because of human nature. Some people are faster, smarter, and more abundant than others. That's it. Okay. They don't make Camaros anymore. You can't buy a new one. Yeah, I know. That's sad, right? I lost my chance to buy a new Camaro. Well, that's good. That's actually a good thing. Now I can't get a new one. All right. So, can scratch that off the bucket list. Can't buy a new Camaro if they don't make new Camaros. All right, been rocking my UE shirt this summer, getting compliments left and right, man. Hey, right on, Larry. Thank you so much for supporting the Uneducated Economist with the merchandise. My old hoodie, this is my original hoodie that I bought from Teespring, like, I don't even know, 6 years ago or something. And it's like all faded away and stuff, but I really appreciate people who do purchase stuff off of the Teespring account. I know I have to go and update it, and there's some stuff that that's kind of fallen out of date, and I think it's like they don't even make it anymore. So I will at some point go through and update the Teespring, but I really appreciate everybody who has purchased the Uneducated Economist merchandise and sported that around. I've had a few people tell me, it's just like a friend of mine had a hat, an Uneducated Economist hat, and I forget where he was at, Missouri or something like that, I think, is at the post office, and the guy at the post office recognized the name. He's like, oh, hey, I like that guy, I follow that channel, and he was like, yeah, I know that dude, so pretty cool. All right, where can I get UE merch? There's a link down in the description. It's to Teespring. It should be right there in the description. Oh, thank you, All Nighter. All Nighter's gonna get the merch link for you. For example, most truck drivers are not employees of the trucking company. In fact, they are independent contractors. Therefore, you could be a truck driver and employed and earn an amazing living. Well, I mean, I think just like anything, I think the opportunity to be a successful truck driver or have a successful truck driving career is there, like, the opportunity is, but so is a successful, builder, a carpenter or anything else out there. You have to be good at what you're doing, and then also, get the right jobs and run the right routes, or, whatever it is. I mean, you got going, I don't know anything about trucking that much, like as far as like the internal workings of a trucker company or a business operator on how you be profitable at that. I'm sure it's on the deliveries that you run and where you're headed to and where you're at. So, everything has its opportunity. I mean, I know it does. Like, to be honest with you guys, I've made money doing some of the oddest stuff in the entire world, and I mean, it's like, I remember one time I was broke as hell, and my buddy, who was just like, he goes, dude, my landlord's all pissed off because the dog has crap all over the yard and I can't do it, man. It just makes me throw up. And I'm like, all right, man, I'll go pick up the dog crap. How much, It was just like, he's like, how much? And I'm like, dude, I want like $30 to pick up all that dog crap. It took me like 10 minutes or whatever. Right. So I picked it up, went, washed my hands. He gave me a beer. I'm sitting there with this money in my hand, and his buddies are kind of laughing at me. And I'm sitting there, I'm drinking their beer, right? And I got this money sitting in my hand, and I'm looking at them as I'm drinking their beer. And pretty soon they're like, holy shit, did he just make $35 or whatever? I think it was $25 or something in 10 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, I sure did. You know, that's how quickly I made it. Because at the time, I would do like, it didn't matter what it was. I would mow lawns, wash windows, do carpentry, whatever, man. I mean, I was knitting crab pots and doing all kinds of stuff, you know. Oh, Sal from What's Going On with Shipping Channel has agreed to an interview. He's a fun dude. Yeah, we should set that up. Set that up for us, all-nighter. You should set up the Zoom meeting and record it for us. You should like be the moderator or something of that. Conduct the interview. Yeah. I think that would be cool. That unemployment statistic only measures people who have recently filed for unemployment benefits. I understand. And the reason that I mean, it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the reality of the situation is, because we're not necessarily looking at it we're not looking at things as the way the monetary policy should be, right? Because there's nothing we can do to change it. I would love to say, hey, Fed, look at it this way. You know, look, this is more appropriate. What you guys have done is screwed up in all these other ways. And I mean, we can talk about it and complain about it and say how wrong it is. And I would agree on a lot of aspects of that. The only problem with that is that it doesn't give us an understanding of what it is that they are doing, because we have to understand what it is that they are doing with their numbers. Right? It's not up to us to say, hey, you need to look at the unemployment in this fashion so that you can give your monetary policy a different consideration. They won't do it. I mean, no matter how much we wish. I mean, look at the Trump can't get Fed to do anything, let alone us as the people. We can't do anything either. But what we can do is understand that the Federal Reserve is looking at unemployment as part of their indicator of where they are going to conduct themselves with their Fed funds rate. If unemployment is low, then most likely they are not going to adjust that Fed funds rate on account of the labor market so long as unemployment is low. Right? Now, regardless of what the reality of the situation is, layoffs go skyrocketing, real unemployment is like, you know, the labor force is super weak. There's a super, you know, what is it, like people like falling off of the workforce, whatever that's supposed to mean. Like they're not even actively looking for work and they don't have a job and they don't have unemployment and none of that other stuff. Like all those things exist and they are elevated. However, if you're looking at the monetary policy and how it is that the Federal Reserve is going to be conducting monetary policy, so you know whether or not it's appropriate to borrow money to buy a house or a car or do the business plan or whatever it is that you're doing, then you have to look at what it is that the Federal Reserve is looking at, right? We have to think like, we're not important. Understand, 80% of the people are not important. They're not considered. 20% of the people are. They're the ones who are important. They do 70% of the consumption. They're the ones who are the economy is all based around. That's the one they're actively looking at. Everybody else is pacified with EBT, unemployment checks, stimulus checks of some sort, government safety nets of medical whatever benefits. I don't know, like whatever it is that's out there that makes them feel somewhat secure about being poor, that's what they get for that. But there's no way in the world the monetary policy is geared to us as the working class individual who is down in the 80% doing just a small amount of the consumption out there. We are not important enough for them to care about. So once we come to that understanding, once we realize that they are not looking at us, they don't care about our employment except for it staying low, because that's the indicator of their monetary policy. What they are more worried about is whether or not the top 20% of the people can continue to do their consumption, because them consuming is 70% of the entire economy. Like you think about it, top 10% do 50% of the consumption. How important are the bottom 50% of people? They're not. They're simply not important at all. Outside of them acknowledging the existence of those people, they do not care. Nothing in the administration and all their activities and all their laws that they passed and all that other stuff do they give a crap about anybody other than the top upper wealth income households. That's the only people they care about. It's because we're a consumer debtor nation. They're the only ones who can consume on a level that makes it worthy for the government. They're the only, like everybody else doesn't consume enough. So if you are a consumer debtor nation, then you have to focus in on those who are doing the consumption. And the consumption is being done by the top 10 and 20% of the people. Everybody else hardly contributes at all to the consumption. It's weird to think, right? Because I mean, even as a broke ass dude, I thought I consumed a lot, but considering what I've read on the statistics, what I've learned after having moved myself away from what I feel is the very close to the gutter. I mean, I wasn't in the gutter, but I felt like I was getting very close to it, and having rubbed shoulders with what I feel is some of the higher income earners in the country, you know what I mean? I realize that there is a huge difference in the way that not only people understand and feel about money, the government, but how it is the government feels and deals with the people themselves. They just don't care about the lower end. You're just not important enough. You don't do enough. You don't earn enough. You don't spend enough. And it's sad because I used to think that there was actually some belief out there that they would try, right? That they would try to do something that was going to be a benefit to the people, so that, as that, like that idea that we are Americans, we can rise together or something like that. And then I come to once I became aware of the whole situation, I come to the realization, man, they do not. Like, they can't. Like, and it's not that they don't care, it's just they can't care. They can't care, because if they cared more about you than they did the top 10%, the whole thing would start to unravel and come apart. They can only care about the top 10 and 20% of the people because of the amount of consumption that they do. They have to maintain that and make sure that it continues on, because if they let that disintegrate, then the whole thing falls apart. The bottom 80%, they can suffer in pain and misery all day long. It doesn't really bother them that much. But you start messing with the top 10, 20% of the people, now they got a problem. That's why Trump wants to lower interest rates so bad. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, I have a hard time believing that he really wants to lower interest rates. I think he really wants to do is he wants to put that perception out there to lower the inflation expectation, raise the real interest rates. We've talked about this a million times and all kinds of reasons behind it. But if you really think about it, if he truly, truly, truly wants to lower interest rates, what he wants to do is make himself and his buddies richer. That's really what he wants to do. Because that's what will happen. And don't get me wrong, I think I can position myself to actually take advantage of that, and I think I could actually do well. I think I could probably do fairly well in that sort of environment, understanding what is happening out there. But I also know that he doesn't care about the people. And he doesn't, and there's nothing that he is talking about that will bring any sort of benefit to the people whatsoever. But to the bottom 80% of the people. Top 20% of the people, it'll bring a lot to them. I mean, the rich people know what he's talking about. And that's what's sad about this whole thing. All right. That is this tax break for the uber wealthy. Yes, with a real yard if you can handle the humidity. Humidity? I have 33 cents in my savings. Ew. That's not a lot, but you think about it, if you have 33 cents in your savings and no debt whatsoever, that's not actually a bad place to be. I mean, being debt-free is actually a pretty good spot, because right now you can start collecting up on assets and be 100% in assets. Just think about yourself in that sense. Like, if you have no debt and you have 33 cents, at this point, if you start increasing, you can Robinhood $5 purchases into stocks. Now you're 100% in assets and no liabilities whatsoever. You know how awesome that is? I don't care if it's just $5. You can take $5 to 10 to 20 to however high you want to get that. But being 100% assets and zero liabilities, man, that is an awesome place to be. Don't look at that as negative. That's a positive. I win regardless. I just hate the scapegoating foreigners. It's disgusting. Deport them all. I don't know about that. What plan? Yeah. What if I make 350K as a W-2 individual? Would I benefit from the tax break? I don't know. Like I don't look at taxes like that. I just don't. You know. The S&P has gained 22% over the last 12 weeks, one of the biggest short-term rallies in history. Investing is one of the only ways to make it. Yeah, and I agree with that. And I believe dollar cost averaging is one of the best ways to get into the stock market, because really you can handle the volatility a lot better if you've dollar cost averaged in the entire time. Like, you just kind of grow accustomed to the volatility. And really, if you do it over a long period of time, your average is generally a lot lower than what the current market is. And so as a lot of people get very upset about volatility in the market, is because they position themselves in a big way in a single shot, so that if the market drops, now they're like experiencing all this pain because of this idea of loss, unrealized loss, if they don't sell it. However, if you dollar cost average, you put $50 in a week or every other week or once a month or something, and it fluctuates by 20%, you're not really like that upset about it. It's just like, okay, so it moved $10, whatever, that's just a $50 bill. And the more you're in the game, the more you grow accustomed to it. Again, like the volatility, you just kind of learn to absorb it and deal with it as you do it over time, especially if you're in the cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or something. That's really volatile, and you can really, learn to live in a volatile market starting with that. All right, the working class gets nothing. Prepare for riots. You only have to prepare for riots once the people are spending 50% of their money on food. Once they put 50% of their income into buying food, they'll riot. Roth and 401k for normal workers work. Yeah, and I have both 401k and a Roth as well through work. I got work contributing. They employer contributions. That's like free money. Like, I don't know, like people are like, oh, don't go into a 401k. And I'm like, my boss is putting money in it too. Like, that's free money. Like, how could you not do it? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, of course I'm going to do it. I mean, if he's going to contribute to it, then I'm going to contribute to it, as much as he's going to contribute to it. All right. Live below your means, invest the difference. There, I just solved wealth inequality. Yeah, Trader Tom, but actually that's what's going to create the inequality too, because at some point you're actually going to want to enjoy that, right? See, there is no solving the wealth inequality. It's only you dealing with it. Now, Trader Tom, you taking personal responsibility for yourself is exactly right. Now, your idea or your suggestion for people is exactly the right one. It's what people should be doing. However, the more that people do that, you're going to find that there's going to be ever increasing amounts of inequality that is created on account of it, right? Because it's just the nature of how the cycle works. You start off broke as hell, right? Whether you're a nation, an individual, a company, whatever, and you start to increase your industriousness, which is the money coming in. You get smarter, you get better, you get pay raises, whatever it is that you're doing out there, your skills are getting better and you earn more money. Once you start to earn more money, what do you want to do with that money? All right? You want to enjoy it. So if you take that moment and say, I'm not going to enjoy the money, I'm going to hold back and I'm going to save this money and I'm going to invest it, well, at some point, why are you doing it? Because you want to enjoy the money. And at some point in the future, you're going to be like, hey, I don't have to work anymore, but then I can spend this money, which is a luxurious experience, because everything that you're doing after that is using your investments to then pay for your way of life, which is a great position for you to be in. However, that's going to be the inequality that is created on account of it. It's a very naturally occurring thing. And I'm not trying to say it shouldn't happen. I think it should happen just because it's the natural cycle of things. If it didn't happen, it means we're probably in a communistic, tyrannical regime trying to prevent that from occurring. So it's okay for it to happen. It's not okay for a lot of people out there because they're going to suffer in pain and misery on account of it. But if it doesn't happen, what is the reasons why it's not happening? It's probably because you have a government entity preventing it from taking place. And if that's what that looks like, is generally a boot on the face of humanity. I don't know what you want. Like, you can't solve this, so I don't know why anybody would want to try to solve it. I know that's kind of like the general theme when it comes to economics, is how do we solve this problem? But I think really the problem should just be solved by your understanding what it is that's occurring out here, so that you can say, hey man, I don't need a new car, but I do need a couple of trucks so that I can continue to work my construction job. That's a different mentality from somebody saying, man, I need a new BMW in my life. All right, moving on. Remember Geordi in the Star Trek First Contact? He goes, "We don't use money in the future. We help each other instead." Okay. That's a great idea. I don't know. Like, I mean, how do you help the person who doesn't want to do anything? Like, here you got a doctor who's just like, man, I have put a lot of time, effort, energy into understanding what it is what it is to be a practicing medical doctor, doing surgery, curing illnesses, whatever it is out there. And somebody says, man, you have put a lot of time, effort, energy, and all that into there. Now give it all to me for free. Right? Because I don't really do anything. Like, yeah, I don't do anything. Like, I go fishing every day and I go surfing and that's what I do. Right? Because I don't need to do anything. We don't have any money and everybody else is doing stuff. So that's what I do. Like, how does this work? I don't get it. Like, you have to trade goods and services and usefulness for other goods and services if you want something of usefulness. I mean, it's just like all there is to it. So the idea that there is no money and that we can all hold hands and sing kumbaya and just share each other's wealth with each other, I mean, I just don't believe that to be the case. And I don't think it ever will be. Right? There's somebody out there who's going to be like, nah, I think I'm going to hold back and I'm going to have 2 T-bones tonight and a ribeye, while that guy over there doesn't have anything more than carrots to eat. Like, yeah, that's the way it's going to go down. All right, I'm a doctor and definitely do not agree with trading my services for nothing. Well, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't trade, like, I wouldn't do all the time, effort, and energy to try and be good, really, really good at something, just for somebody else to say, hey, you have to give that all up for nothing. You have to share that with everybody else. You didn't earn that. Like, I'm like, that was really what got me. You got a business, you didn't earn that. You didn't get that on your own. You remember Obama saying that? I was so frustrated with that. I'm like, dude, give me a break. You don't think somebody out there who started a business had to do it on their own, had to figure out and fail and struggle to get all that, and then he wants to say you didn't do that on your own? And it was just like, no, you're right. There is a bunch of other people out there within this economy that I had to interact with in order to build this business up. But I guarantee you there was nobody out there saying, hey, man, let me hold your hand and get you through this. No, it doesn't work like that. And that's what the feeling that I got when Obama was saying, you got a business, you didn't earn that, you didn't do that on your own. And I'm like, what in the world is this dude talking about? This is the reason why I hate politics. It really is. Like, I look at this stuff now and I'm just like, man, it's all just a bunch of crap. All right. When Trump took office, $8 million a day went to his companies from taxpayer dollars. That has increased quite a bit in the matter of months. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, are you wanting to try and stop the corruption or something? Like, I mean, I don't know. There's going to be corruption. There's going to be all the, I don't know, the fraud, the taking. I mean, hell, even Cantillon talks about it. I don't know how to stop that. Right? I don't know how that I am, like, what is it that I can do by putting my thought, energy, and studies towards they're ripping you off. I don't know how to do it. I don't have any ideas. I'm sorry, man. I don't have any ideas on that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try and figure out what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing with their monetary policy so I can position myself with my investments, my ideas of business, where it is that I'm going to do with my things in my life going on, because I can't stop them from being thieves. I can't. The Federal Reserve, like the Federal Reserve itself, had members resign right as COVID was kicking in for their insider trades. Like, I don't know how many millions and millions of dollars these guys made when they're like, guys, you just went and did a whole bunch of trades before all this stuff came out and announced, and obviously you just made just an insane amount of money doing this. And they're like, yeah, we did. Well, I quit. That's it? Like, nothing happens? You just quit? You take the money and you get to go? Okay. I mean, obviously, okay. I mean, I don't know what else we're going to do about it, but they just did, like, literally just made trades and then passed laws and announced stuff that just caused them to be absolutely in the most profitable positions in the entire world. They knew it was going to happen. They got busted with it. They quit and nothing happened. No jail time, no get back the money, none of that stuff. Okay. Yeah, and I'm like, if this is the way it's going to be, then I mean, I guess I just won't care about the corruption and all the thievery and all that other stuff. You guys are just going to just rape as much as you want out of it, you know? But I still have to figure out what I'm going to do, right? I mean, I can't do that. Right? I can't position myself and ahead of laws being passed that are secret before they are actually known by anybody else out there. I can't position myself like that. So lucky for them. I mean, hey, that's great. I mean, lucky for them that they happen to have the network of people that they were able to find a job in which that they were able to do that and not get in trouble for doing it. That's incredible. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Right? I mean, other than read about it and complain about it, I don't know. All right. So again, I have to revert back to what is it that they're doing with their monetary policy so I can figure out what I need to do with mine. Because I can't stop them from being thieves. This mentally leads to not caring about anything. No, that's not true. Do you not see how much I care about the position that I take? How much I care about you understanding the monetary policy? How much I care about what it is that's taking place with things like within the lumber industry, so I can give a better insight to where it is that I am in my industry, let alone the other people out there who are following this channel because they happen to be builders or mortgage brokers or something out there that kind of relates to this industry. Are you kidding me, man? This is not giving up on any, it's giving up on them, trying to stop them from being assholes. I've given up on that. I can't stop somebody from that. They are going to be that no matter what I do or say or try to convince them of otherwise. That's going to continue to occur, and there's nothing I can do about that. I wish there was. I really do, right? I try to vote for the right people. I try to, live my life in a way that I feel is most appropriate for what I feel to be a continually expanding operation of economy that would benefit everybody. I try to conduct myself in a way that I think is most appropriate. Like, I do my part, but I can't convince somebody else not to be a jerk. I can't do that. I can't read about how they blatantly broke the law, got away with it, quit, and nothing happened. Like, what am I supposed to do about that? Nothing. There's nothing I can do. And I'm not going to sit around and waste time and energy and effort into a thought that doesn't change anything about anything out there other than the waste of time that I had taken to think about it. I don't like it. I agree, man. I mean, if you can come up with an idea, if you want to go fight the good fight and see if you can get those guys busted and serve some jail time, I would love to see it. I mean, I would be like, dude, I'd be rooting for you the entire way. Do you think you can do that? I mean, honestly, do you think you should put some time and effort and energy into getting those guys to go to jail, even though it's obvious to everybody that they just blatantly broke the law and they resigned right after that and said, thank you for the money? Like, I don't think there's much you can do. All right, let's check out the super chat. Joe, thank you for the 10 Canadian. Do you think there is definitely gold in Fort Knox? I do. Poly Market says there's a 100% chance there's gold in there. I think the gold is there. What I don't necessarily believe is that there's enough gold there to actually do anything for the American people or the government. I mean, if you were to go into Fort Knox and extract all the gold and sell it, I mean, you'd probably only have like a month or two's worth of expenses inside of there and it would all be gone. So, like, to me, it doesn't really matter if the gold is there or not. It's not enough of it to really mean anything at this point because it's essentially just been leveraged away. Are those boys lighting off smoke bombs or something? It stinks out here. All right. What time is it? An hour into this. This was a lot. This is a lot of fun. We got 303 people watching with 130 likes. If you want me to continue on with this live stream, get the likes up to 150. That's 20 likes from here. We got 298 people watching. It shouldn't take any time at all. Get it up to 150 likes and we'll continue on for another 15, 20 minutes. All right. Voting with ballot accountability may be useful. See, I think, like, really ultimately the best way you could ever possibly vote is with your dollars. If you took all your money, if everybody took their money out of the banking system and started putting it into gold and silver, the whole system would begin to collapse, right? So, I mean, we don't need to pass any law. We don't have to get any. We just individually need to start transferring all our money into physical gold and silver. You transfer and not have any bank accounts and not use dollars. You do something like that and the whole system would begin to collapse. It wouldn't work. So, like, we have the chance to do it now. We don't have to do anything. You just have to take your own initiative and convince everybody else to do the exact same thing. Right? I mean, I doubt you're going to be able to do that. So, like, how like, you already have the opportunity to make it happen. You can do it with Bitcoin too. Yeah. But I would think to a lesser extent. Trump is criminally insane, but people are fine voting for your own elimination. I accept Bitcoin. I would accept Bitcoin too. And we can legalize weed for heaven's sakes. I don't know. Here in Oregon, weed has essentially always been, well, it was decriminalized back in the 70s, so it was never a crime. Right? It wasn't a crime to have weed in Oregon. It was a misdemeanor. So if you had an ounce or less and you didn't package it up and you weren't like manufacturing or distributing or anything like that, you just had personal use, you paid like a $600 ticket and you went on your way. Right? Nobody went to jail. Nobody lost their livelihoods. They didn't have anybody come and confiscate all your stuff. Right? Smoking weed was not a crime. It was a misdemeanor. You paid a fine and you went home. All right? No big deal. And so in Oregon, like, you know, the idea of legalizing weed, like, to me, it was just like, I didn't even really understand the whole idea behind it anyway. And people were like, oh, this is going to be so awesome. It's going to be so much money and all this other stuff. And I'm like, money? In that? I said, no, there's not. There's no money in that. I mean, there's kind of some money in it, but so long as you have it illegal, because with risk comes reward, but there's no money. There's no real value in any of it. It's just a worthless weed. I mean, outside of, you know, the use to get high, there's really nothing in there. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, CBD is a pretty powerful medicine, so there's some, you know, medical use that's involved with it, but that's pretty small on the entire industry, right? I mean, there's one reason for that industry, and it's a worthless reason. It doesn't provide you with anything. Okay? I mean, and I know a lot of people will argue with me on this, but at least beer has calories, so you get something out of it. At least you get a calorie or two out of it. But with weed, there's nothing in it. And this is the thing. Anybody can do it, right? Don't get me wrong. There's people out there who are talented to grow good quality, quantity, all that other stuff. Very smart, intelligent people who understand the industry, the product, and everything that they are doing. Don't get me wrong, it's true. But then there's other people who can just put a plant out behind the shed, forget about it, and grow killer weed. Right? Because there's no real special talent or skill that is needed. Right? That's the difference. It's just a worthless product. I know this from being around it my entire life. I'd laugh so hard when people were like, oh man, this is going to be so profitable. And I'm like, maybe in the first year or two, as it's building up, the industry is. But once you have a flood of green, right, you are swimming in a sea of green, it's over. There ain't no money in it. There ain't no money in it. It doesn't have any value unless you make it illegal and give it some risk. Now it has value. Hey, Matt. The problem with growing weed in Oregon, especially in the area I am in, is that you can grow some really beautiful plants, but then when it goes to flower, it all rots because it just molds. The environment around here is just too damp an environment, and during that particular season when it's coming into harvest, it gets very cool, and unless you have it covered in a greenhouse or something like that, you end up with a lot of bud rot, and so everything just starts to mold and turn to crap on you. But the plants look beautiful. It's great ornamental. Studies just came out, weed is bad for you. No way. Weed is the #1 drug in the world. Study, okay. Isn't the Fed a smokescreen for the underlying forces, smoke and mirrors? I don't think they're a smoke screen for the underlying economic forces. I think underlying economic forces are still at play, but people don't necessarily recognize these underlying economic forces because they're essentially covered up with money printing and the expansion of the money. Like, you think about it, the underlying economic force should have sent all the gold over to the foreigners. When we flipped our balance of trade, when we went from being a producer, saver nation, when we were producing the world's greatest stuff and sending it out there to the world, and the world was sending us their gold, when that flipped and we were sending the gold out, because we were bringing in their stuff, Nixon severed us from the gold standard. Like, that is the moment right there where the Cantillon effect was kicking in. The underlying economic force was trying to balance out the whole hoarding of gold. Once you have it hoarded into your possession, there comes a balancing act where you relinquish it back out there to the world. That's what was taking place, but Nixon said, nah, I don't think so. And he severed us from the gold standard, and we went on to a 100% fiat-based currency, debt-based currency. And at that point, they kept expanding the money, right? Kept bringing in the foreign production and sending out the dollars. And this kept causing the underlying economic forces, which is the inequality, to grow worse and worse and worse. And we never had that rebalancing that the underlying economic forces was trying to create when the gold standard was severed. So it doesn't mean that the underlying economic forces aren't still growing. They are. And you can find the evidence of it inside of the massive inequality that has taken place. It shouldn't have happened like this, but if you continuously increase the money supply, which is something that Cantillon didn't have back in the day. I mean, he had the increase of U.S. government, or not the U.S., but the increase of government stock, right? The investors buying government stock, buying the government bonds. But it only went to the point that eventually people lost faith in that particular government, and then they stopped sending money, and the flow of money stopped, and then everything collapsed. We happen to have something very unique in the idea that we have taken over the entire globe as far as the issuance of the currency, right? The world reserve currency, the people that demand our liability. And now there may be a loss of confidence out there, but the demand for the liability is still quite prevalent. People want to they want to be paid back, right? And even if they don't want the dollar, they're like, okay, as soon as this contract's done, I'm out of the dollar, but they want the contract to be paid. Like, they got to get paid in dollars, and as soon as they are, they're going to get out, but they're still got a contract that is due in dollars. And that is what is taking place here inside of the globe that keeps the dollar issuance going, which keeps the expansion going, which keeps the inequality going. All this should have had an equilibrium found due to the underlying economic forces that were trying to find that balance, and essentially was prevented from happening. But it didn't really prevent it. It more postponed it. All right. Let's see. How do we got 164, right on. Okay, UE, oh, hey, right on, Cody. It's great to see you. UE, do you think the US dollar is going to collapse in the next 20 years? I do not. I do not think it's going to collapse in the next 20 years. In fact, I just don't think it's going to collapse in my lifetime. And the main reason behind it is because you can already see the establishment of stablecoins. And with this stablecoin, they are able to then run into negative interest rates so long as they can pull the cash out of the system. In that sense, they may very well be able to carry this on a lot longer than we had ever thought that was possible, because we never really had the ability to take interest rates into negative territory in a profound way, right? Because of the cash being in the system. If you were going to get a negative interest on your cash deposit, then you would simply not hold cash in the bank. You would hold cash in its physical form, mattress money. However, if stable coins are issued and there is no cash, then you have no choice. Now they can take stable coins into a negative territory and there's nothing you can do about it. Who knows how far that can go, right? Like it's an unknown territory that has, who knows, like as far as like the what ifs that can go with it. I mean, I just don't believe that we're going to find a crashing of the dollar in the next 2 years. Oh, you need the blue dice? I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Who is that? Art, we got blue dice here for you. Let me give them a spin. These are the recent ones that all-nighter got me. This is the ones that we got up in Orlando at the Rebel Capitalist. Edibles can provide pain relief for some people. Matt, I agree. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a powerful medicine that's involved when it comes to the cannabis industry and CBDs and stuff like that. But when I think about like the industry in itself, like here, think about the energy that is in it. What is it? It's to get high. Everything about it, all the songs, all the posters, all the product, everything about it is all about, hey man, relax, feeling good, all the other stuff, right? It's all about changing your perception of reality, every bit of it. And so although it does provide a nice relief for some people who might be stressed, or other people who are feeling anxiety, or other people who are feeling like nauseous or whatever that comes from it, they might be able to find this powerful medicine that comes from it. What is 99% of the industry? Right? I mean, it's just easier to accept it for what it is. It's there to get high. And that's it. Right? And the handful of people who do use it legitimately for pain and stress and all the other stuff, I'm sure, I'm sure there's some people out there who are legitimate when they're using it and saying, hey man, I'm not doing this just to get high. That might be a very small fraction of the people, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, I've been around this stuff long enough to know that that everybody's doing it to get high. And there's no point in, like, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. It's just what it is. We in Thailand is way better than America is. I can't believe you still have light right now. Down in San Diego, it's already dark. Yeah, it will be light. Like, what time is it? It's probably getting pretty late, isn't it? It's 8:30. Yeah, it'll be late. It'll be light out until probably 9:30. Right? Yeah, I guess probably about 9:30. Like, even at 10 o'clock, 10 or even almost 11 o'clock, you can still kind of see it's like, you can still kind of see some of the, like, it's dark, obviously, but, you know, you can still kind of see some of the daylight left. Where all-nighters at right now, it doesn't get dark. It just stays light all the time. There's, like, a couple of, like, just a short time of darkness. And then what's funny about it is at, like, 4 o'clock in the morning, and it'll be light again. Like, I could come out here at 4 and it would be all, you know, it started getting light. All right. The weather in your area must be nice since you are wearing a jacket. Yeah. I mean, it was a little warm there for a minute while the sun was coming through, but right now it's quite pleasant. Yeah. All right. What's your thoughts on pursuing further education in my career? Well, I think anybody who is trying to, like, there's only one thing that you should really, really, truly invest in, and that's yourself, right? Like, if you have any opportunity to invest in yourself with the learning of a skill or the growth of yourself in some way or the other. Like investing in yourself is by far the best investment that you could ever possibly do. And like even myself, when I think about it, it was just like, so I have like where I'm thinking is a decent holdings of liquidable assets that make me feel pretty comfortable with how like how quickly I was able to acquire it, considering how far behind I have been. And if I continue on this pace, I will feel pretty good about it, right? Now, it also has now got me thinking, well, where else can I invest? And really, I need to be investing in me, in this in this product that I have built up, this Uneducated Economist, and doing more of that kind of thing. So if it was me personally, this is where I would want to invest in. And I do believe I'm setting up the steps to eventually get there. I just have other priorities in my life right now, like my family, that I'm more focused on, you know? And so, all right. And Cody and Silver, yeah, absolutely. Simon, why does a businessman president not understand lowering rates won't help average Americans? What is his real intentions? Okay, great question. Now, if you think about it, if you can lower the inflation expectation, you will raise the real interest rates. If you raise the inflation expectations, you will lower the real interest rates. And now this is something that not a lot of people have internalized and understand when it comes to like where it is that the Federal Reserve is positioned, where it is in position to the neutral interest rate, and where it is in position to the idea of the elevated inflation expectation or less expectations, lower inflation expectations. All these things have a profound impact on the economy, and they don't have to adjust rates at all. Now, if you think about fear, uncertainty, and doubt creating the uncertainty that then gives them the ability to have an open-ended discussion about what it is that's taking place, what tariffs, what interest rates, what, right? All these what ifs that come out there. And you think to yourself, man, I have no idea what's going on out there. Now, when they deploy information, you will then gobble it up, right? And I'm trying to describe it in the easiest way I can. This is not me who is describing this as like I'm just coming up with some kind of far off concept or something like that I'm just making up. If you think about, this is Jefferson saying this, right? This is Philip Jefferson. He's a voting member of the FOMC, right? February 21st, 2025. So it wasn't that long ago. And this is what he had to say inside of this speech. What's the title of the speech? It's Reading Between the Lines, Textual Analysis and Central Bank Communication. Now, in this speech, he had this to say: using textual analysis, high-frequency asset price data, and high-frequency central bank communication data, the research shows that investors' reactions to specific sentences communicated by the central bank are quickly incorporated into asset prices. So they know that there are specific sentences that they can use that are going to get quickly incorporated into asset prices. Now, if you are very, very uncertain about the future and have no idea about what is going to happen, they can deploy specific words and sentences that will then give you the confidence that will move these asset prices. This is important. They don't have to adjust rates. They don't have to do that. But they do have to create an open-ended fear, uncertainty, and doubt so that they can deploy these specific words and sentences so that they can get quickly incorporated into asset prices. If you did not have fear, uncertainty, and doubt, they could say things all day long. You wouldn't listen. You wouldn't care. You'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, bro. I got my certainty. I ain't doubt. I am not in fear. I ain't worried about it. Say whatever you want. All right? That's what ended up happening. But if they can create a problem for you that you have no idea of what is occurring out there, now they can come out and deploy information that works in their favor. He goes on to say this: policymakers know that their communications are likely to affect the course of short-term interest rates. Donald Trump wants to adjust short-term interest rates. He wants to adjust interest rates. Well, policymakers can do it with their communications. They know this. They said it back in February that they can do this and that they're going to do it going into the future. Here we are, right? They're using specific words and sentences, creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and then deploying that into the market so that they can get the reactions that they're looking for. Right? Think about it. We have a hot economy, Like even Trump admits it, right? Oh, we've got such a great economy. It's one of the best economies in the entire globe. It's really kicking butt. They should be lowering rates immediately. Well, that's a sign of a bad economy when you lower interest rates. So what do we got? A good economy or a bad economy? Or are you just trying to put fear, uncertainty, and doubt and raise and lower the fear or the expectations that are out there? Right? Because the movement doesn't happen. Like the Fed doesn't move. They just sit on their hands the whole time and everybody talks about what they're going to do. But they don't really do anything. You know? Policymakers know that their communications are likely to affect the course of short-term interest rates, other asset prices, and the associated economic outlook, resulting in an easing and tightening of financial conditions. See, they already know it. They know that their communications will do this. But if you are very certain, their communications won't work. Because they'll babble on all day long and you won't listen because you're already certain about your expectations and already go, I'm good. But tariffs, fear of, the whatever's coming, problems, issues, I don't know, like just can make a whole list of the things that are taking place out there, and it just destroys the confidence that people have in their position and what they have taken because they just have no idea what's coming. What tariffs, right? And this is how they're doing it. I try to explain it to people every day. I come out here and I show this, and I know it's hard for a lot of people to internalize, because really what we want is we want information that makes us feel secure, right? We want information, even if it's bad information, even if it's information that says this is going to destroy you. If you are very certain about how it is that it's going to destroy you, it actually makes you feel somewhat comfortable about the whole idea. Isn't that weird? Right? If you know how it's going to happen, if you think for certain that you know how this thing is going to go down, then you actually feel somewhat better about it. And it's weird because people seem to want to look for that. They want to know exactly how it's going to get destroyed, and that's going to make them feel better about what it is that they got going on in their life. It's weird. All right, let's go check this out here. Jeffrey, thank you so much for the $4.99 question. Fed is pulling the wool over our eyes. Okay. To what effect? Just with an object to move interest rates, just with an objective to move interest rates in the direction they wanted. Question. They're pulling the wolves over our eyes. Okay, so to what effect? Okay, so to me, I don't feel like the wool is being pulled over my eyes. I think that everything is going along exactly the way that they want. So when I say that they're pulling the wool over people's eyes, how many people are actually thinking that the Federal Reserve is trying to get to a 2% target? Everybody? Like 99% of the people believe that the Federal Reserve is attempting to get to a 2% target? I mean, they say it, everybody says it, news says it all over the place, but I can repeat it time and time and time again through the Fed's own words that they are going for moderately above 2% for some time. So who got the wool pulled over their eyes? The people who are believing that they are trying to get to a 2% target but can't get there? Or the people who said no, they were never trying to get to a 2% target. They want to get to moderately above 2% for some time, and this is exactly what they are getting out of it. So who has the wool pulled over their eyes? Right? 99% of the people who believe that 2% target was the objective. It wasn't, and never was. They wanted it moderately above 2% for some time to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve the 2% target over the previous 10 years. This isn't me. This is the Fed saying it. Here. In fact, it was the plan the whole time. Let me tell you right here. Monetary policy for a low neutral interest rate world. Right? What does the neutral interest rate mean for a monetary policy and anchoring of inflation expectation? When a recession hits, central banks may not be able to reduce interest rates well below their neutral level to stimulate the economy as warranted by the effective lower bound on nominal interest rates. This shortfall in monetary accommodations would result in a less desirable economic outcomes during the recession and recovery. In particular, inflation would typically undershoot its desired target during these episodes. The persistence of below target inflation rates in many advanced economies over the past decade is a testament to this dynamic. Right? As a result, the inherent asymmetry introduced by the lower bound on interest rates and inflation targeting central bank could experience inflation that is below target once we consider the average inflation rate over the periods when policy is constrained and those when it is not. With inflation on average below the target level, inflation expectations will likely slip below target rate as well. Does it sound like they had a problem with too high of inflation, or was their problem too low of inflation? A simple example helps to illustrate this problem. Say 80% of the time, the lower bound on interest rates does not constrain policy and central banks aims for a 2% target inflation rate. During these good times, inflation targeting central bank aims to keep inflation near 2%. But 20% of the time, the economy falls into recession that is severe enough that the lower bound constrains policy. Assume that during these periods, inflation averages only 1%. So 80% of the time, inflation averages 2%, and 20% of the time, inflation averages 1%. The resulting average inflation is about 1.8%. As a consequence, inflation expectations are likely to become anchored at a long-run average of 1.8% below the desired 2% target. You see the problems that they had? Average inflation rate was running below 2%. They needed to get average inflation rate above 2% for some time to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve the 2% target. He goes on to say this is not the end of the story. The downward shift in inflation expectation has a second round effect on real interest rates, the economy, and inflation. When the policy is constrained by the effective lower bound, the downward shift in inflation expectation raises the real interest rates. Weren't we just talking about that just a minute ago? Right? Lower the inflation expectation, you raise the real interest rates. Just like John Williams was saying back in 2018. Further diminishing the degree of monetary stimulus, making the downturn worse and reducing inflation even more. Even in times when policy is not constrained, the expectations of below target inflation in the future affects the current decision, putting additional downward pressure on inflation. In other words, monetary policy is always swimming upstream, fighting a current of too low inflation expectation that interferes with achieving the target inflation rate. This is the problem that the Federal Reserve was facing in 2018. They had an answer to it. In 2018, after all the quantitative easing, printing of money, balance sheet expansion of $850 billion to over $4.5 trillion, and they failed miserably at creating inflation. 2018, they were like, we're screwed, guys, man. We got to figure out how to raise the inflation expectation. He goes on to say this: a number of alternative monetary policy frameworks have been proposed that aim to tackle the problem associated with lower bound on the interest rates. Although they differ in many ways, it is useful to divide the proposals into three broad categories. First option is to maintain the basic framework of inflation targeting and to rely on a combination of aggressive, conventional, and unconventional policy actions when facing economic downturns to limit the deleterious effects of the lower bound. So basically just doing much more of what they've already tried to do. It didn't really work. This carries with it the risk that inflation expectations become anchored at too low a level. They weren't going to be able to do that by itself. See, they knew it. They knew that just running quantitative easing and money printer and putting out the forward guidance wasn't going to be enough because they just tried that. And it failed. It didn't work. He goes on to say this: the second option is, quote, average inflation targeting, whereby the central bank purposefully aims to achieve an above target inflation rate in, quote, good times when the lower bound is not constrained. Properly designed and implemented, such an overshoot can offset the inflation undershoot during, quote, bad times, so that the long-run average inflation and inflation expectations are in line with the target. letting inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve the inflation target over the previous 10 years. I have been saying that over and over and over again. I have not deviated away from that. I believe that to be the case, and I believe that the wool was pulled over the people's eyes when the inflation expectation ran elevated, totally getting the Federal Reserve's monetary policy back, and people thought for sure that they had screwed up, failed, didn't know what they were doing, had come too late, too little, too late, all that other stuff, pulling the wool over the people's eyes. They totally got their ammunition back. They are right in the position that they want to be. And so long as everybody thinks that they screwed up, it just gives them that much more power. I don't know. Like, to me, it seems pretty easy. But I know I study this stuff a lot. I mean, I dive deep into this stuff. I don't let them forget. Them putting these speeches out is probably one of the like the Achilles heels in it all, right? Because they can't back away from it. Once they have stated it, once it's black and white, once it's on paper, they can't back away from it. It's stated, right? And now I got it. And now I sit here and I look at it and I think about what their plan was in 2018. And I think to myself, man, you guys are really good at this. I mean, to be able to call it out in 2018 that you were going to let inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time, even though you had just come off of a balance sheet expansion of $850 billion to over $4.5 trillion, a quadrupling of the money supply, failing to produce an inflationary scenario for you, and yet somehow you're going to come up with this magical idea of creating inflation going into the future. COVID hits. I have to give it to you guys. I did not see that coming. Nope, I didn't. You know, and you got it back. You got your ammo back. You know, and you got your position that you wanted to be in. You got everything that you wanted. Everything. All right, moving on. Are you guys having fun? We got 191 likes, 294 people watching. We're an hour and 31 minutes into this live stream. $27 is super chats because you guys are always so supportive of the Uneducated Economist. Thank you so much for that. You guys want to keep going? I mean, we're an hour and a half into this, so I mean, I guess you do. There's 293 of you. Let's get it up to 200 likes here in the next few minutes, and we'll continue on for another 10 or 15. So question is, what crisis is next? Your misunderstanding of what the situation is the next crisis. All right? Are you thinking like the next pandemic crisis, the next war, the next financial crisis? Is that the one? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the next crisis is going to be. I mean, if I knew, then we would be talking about it. I couldn't tell you. I just know that I feel like I'm positioned to deal with just about anything. Like, you know, no matter how bad it really is. Like, it can be really pretty bad, and I'd be thinking, good Lord, like, I don't know if I'm prepared for it, but at least I think I thought about it enough that, you know, maybe I prepared for it. I don't know, right? Like, nobody can know what the next crisis is going to be. Damn. You COVID, I mean China. Do you have any predictions for the job market? In what sense? Like rising unemployment or something of that nature? Like, I mean, I would imagine that we are probably going to experience an economy in which that the unemployment doesn't rise significantly. And I know this is going to be pretty weird for a lot of people to think about because we're so used to economies with like mass job losses and pain and suffering and stuff that comes from it. But here's the problem. It's not like you're not going to have a job. The problem is that the job isn't going to really be able to provide you with anything. So it's not going to really mean anything. Does that, like, you know, so like there'll be jobs, but like even a good job will suck. So it's just like, you know, it won't be useful, you know, in any way. Do you think about the FHA, VA, USDA workout programs, and if so, what effect will it be? I mean, I don't know. I haven't really thought about, like, you know, thought about it too much. Joe, you know the answer to that. Universal income should be legislated. If you have universal basic income, like universal income that everybody just kind of gets, and we have like this access to new money that just comes to us every single day, you will find the inequality skyrocket. Like if you thought it was bad now, you would put it on a rocket ship to the, I don't even know. Like I couldn't even begin to imagine what it would be like. You can't inject new money into the system. You can't. If you put new money into the system, you will create inequality. It will separate the rich from the poor instantaneously. Okay? Because the poor don't know how to deal with the money. That's why they're poor. Now, if you give the poor a whole bunch of money and they were like, you know what? I'm going to pay off my debt and then I'm going to invest it. Right? Well, then you might have something that would happen, but they don't. They're going to blow it on a good time because that's what poor people do. That's why they're poor. Right? And it's like, I don't mean to like talk down. I was poor my entire life. Like I did not know how to deal with money. I did not know how to deal with anything that I had going on in my life at all. I was screwing it up big time, right? So at 40 years old, I was very much in the place where I didn't know how to deal with money. And any money that I did get, I would just blast it on weed and alcohol anyway. So understanding that if you give UBI or just a universal basic income to the poor, they will spend it on their necessities, very much so, I agree. And then they're going to blast the rest of it on a good time, and it's all going to go to the rich. And the rich are going to separate themselves even more from the poor. If the poor invested, right? If they saved and invested, paid off debt, saved and invested, then we would have a different story. But that's not what they do. It's just not what they do. 80% of the people don't do that. All right. Let's see here. We're already have inequality. If we do UBI, at least the poor will be able to touch that money for a second before it goes to the rich. You guys are just cruel. Well, trash can, man. I mean, if you thought it was already bad, I mean, if you thought that a good job sucked now, a good job will be, it won't even matter after that. Like all your time, all your effort, all your energy going into understanding skills and knowledge and, you know, advancing yourself as far as, you know, being able to build a career would be absolutely pointless and worthless after that. I mean, if you want to destroy yourself as far as your abilities and skills and everything else, just feed UBI into it. It's not being cruel to the poor, right? The poor are cruel to themselves. They just don't realize it. They blame outside external forces, externals, instead of recognizing the internal. Right? And I know this because this is the life that I lived. I was poor. Very much so. My wife grew up poor. Right? Almost at one point. Like, we understand what it is to have absolutely nothing. She knows it better than I do. We understand the mindset behind it. Poor people are there because they don't understand what it is that they are doing, and they are depressed, and they spend their money on whatever little pleasurable experience, which generally ends up being some sort of intoxicant. I don't know how to change that. I can't change that. But I can understand that you could take your effort, energy, and resources and start putting that into something that is going to have a return to convince people not to drink. I tell people all the time my story. I tell them all the time about how it is that it holds them back and keeps them from advancing on their life. Do you think anybody around me has stopped drinking because of the things that I have said? The people who have stopped drinking because of the things I've said have wanted to stop drinking from the beginning. They didn't want it. They didn't want it inside of themselves. They heard my story and it triggered them. I didn't do anything. I shared my experience, my story. They heard it. They resonated with it. And they said, yeah, it's my time. They made that decision for themselves. I can't take that decision. I can't make that decision for them. I can't tell them, hey, today is your day. But one day when I was telling them my story, they heard it and they said, today is my day. They did that, not me. So I know this for everybody out there, every single person, including the poor. There is nothing that we can do to make somebody make the right decision. I can try all day long. Say, here's all the opportunity, all the offers, all the ideas, everything you need to make the right decision. They will not do it, I guarantee you. It's not up to me to tell them what the right decision is. If they are buying into pain and miserable experiences, that's the lessons that they are needing to learn. They need to go through that in order to figure out what it is of pain that they need to experience to learn the lessons, to move on from that. They need to go through it. And being poor is part of that. Having loss, having a lack of abundance, having all that pain and misery is part of the learning lesson. If you don't want to be there, change it. Change your environment. Change the way you're thinking. Change the way you're feeling and behaving. That's the only way. I know because I've done it. I was there. I blamed everything outside of myself for all the reasonings that I was suffering. And then the day I started blaming myself and recognizing that it was my problem and not anybody else's problem, everything started to change. Nothing was changing before that. All the help in the world didn't help. In fact, all the help in the world enabled it, made it worse. It was when I finally got cut off from everybody and everything that I hit rock bottom, that I had no other choice but to sink or swim. And I knew what was causing me to sink. So I dropped the alcohol. I dropped a lot of the bad habits. I started focusing in on my debts. I didn't know what to do. I just knew that if I showed up to work and I paid off my debts, showed up to work, paid off my debts, that was the only thing I knew to do. It was the only right thing I knew. I didn't know what else was right move, right? But I could show up for work and I could pay all my debts. The more I did that, the more the next right decision started to come. Right? It was almost becoming obvious that the next right decision was just presenting itself. It's a mindset, guys. Being rich or poor, it's all in your head. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't know your circumstance. I don't know where you've been. I don't know your past. I don't know your family. I don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about me when it came to my position that I was holding at the time. Outside of what it is that I've told you, nobody knows anything about me. And I'm telling you now that the feelings and ideas and everything that I was holding was what was holding me back. The moment that I changed the way that I was thinking and feeling, everything changed around me. Everybody wants some physical thing to happen, some person, magic person to be up there, some, magic passing of a bill or a law that's going to make everybody this like super happy and comfortable and everything's going to be okay. And it doesn't go down like that. It's not going to happen like that. You can sit around and wish and hope and pray and dream all day long, and it's probably going to be fun to debate and talk about it. But the reality is, unless you are doing something for yourself, nobody else is going to. I don't care how much money you give to the poor. They're poor for a reason. And it's like, if you could educate them into thinking differently, then maybe the UBI might work. But just giving them the money so that they can have an easier way of life is not going to benefit them. Not in any way. Whether you want it or not, UBI is coming. It doesn't matter whether I want it or not. And in fact, I do believe it's coming. Coming in the future, because Google is these big tech companies are working 24 hours a day expanding AI to get rid of both white collar and blue collar jobs. I'm more of a dickhead than you guys. I think we should have a universal living wage paid by either countries. We will sell our defense capabilities for 25% with their GDP. Already we speak, there are law schools all over the country that are closing their doors because of the lack of enrollment, because actually There's no future for attorneys. Well, actually, I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I mean, if we can make governments and courts and laws and all that other stuff irrelevant, then I think we should do that. I'm an anarchist anyway, so I mean, the more I can get government and laws and legalities and all that other stuff out of my life and turn that more into a smart contract sort of application where I don't have courts and people and rule of governance coming down on me, I am all for it. I'm down for that. Let's do it. All right? Yeah, I mean, I can care less about government, so I don't have any, like, I don't have any idea of preserving them for any reason. So I don't like, this is like, if we could do things that just makes them irrelevant, then I'm cool with that, Kirk, drop a verse on us that makes all this make sense. Know this at 18, not 35. We are damned if we do, and we are damned if we don't bring on the AI. I am not, like, I know these people are scared of AI. Like, I'm not that scared of it. I mean, I already see how automation and all this stuff has already taken my job away from me. Like, I mean, I think about it. Half the stuff that I order, like doors, windows, and hardware, and a lot of stuff, I mean, I just order through portals. Like, I literally go to my computer and I just put in all the details and I click, hit enter. Right? I'm not doing anything. The customer could be doing it. They put in this, like, other than, like, I drop sizes, color, whatever. It's just like I'm not doing anything. I'm just filling in the damn blanks. And so I'm thinking to myself, the more I do this, the more I use these portals and these marketplaces to order all these doors and windows and hardware and all this other stuff, I'm literally going to be, like, just phased right out of this. Like, the one day I was just like, I just don't serve any purpose here at all right? And I can see it's already on its way. Like, I'm sitting there looking at, like, the computer, I'm thinking the customer could be doing this shit, and I don't really serve any purpose. Now, don't get me wrong, as a salesman, you do have, like, I mean, I serve some sort of purpose. People go like, hey, what is there, like, I need somebody to tell me about, whatever. And that's when I come in and I start explaining things to them and answer questions and stuff like that. So there's still a position there, but even now with the internet, like, it's amazing on how informed the customers are when they come in to talk to me. Like, they've already done a bunch of research and know a lot about the product, maybe even times more than I do. What happens to the people that AI replaces, maybe cut rates? What happens to the people? They go off and they start pursuing what it is in their life they should have been doing to begin with. All right? AI is going to make it more convenient, provide us with more convenience and more abundance. I don't know why people are scared of it. Like, it's not something you should be scared of. It's something you should embrace. It's something that you should take in and say, hey, man, this thing is coming. How do I make this useful and beneficial in my life? Because if you're going to try and fight it, it's a futile fight. And I mean, it's coming. So $4.99. Thank you, Larry, for the super chat. You the man, bro. Keep on keeping up. Thank you so much, Larry. I really appreciate the support, guys. I mean, you guys are awesome. I was really just going to come out here for a short time and kind of go through that Cantillon essay a little bit. But once I get out here and I get to rolling, I just can't stop. And I mean, here we are almost 2 hours into this live stream. 261 people still watching with 211 likes. This is like, I love this stuff. Having these conversations, going through the comment section, answering these questions, breaking down this ideas of what it is that can happen out here within the economy so that we can make appropriate decisions for ourselves. I don't know anybody else who's doing it quite like we are here, All right. I'm telling you, I talk to attorneys who admit that they use AI now to do most of their work. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. And, like, in my mind, I think about how all the technologies that have ever come into our world has always disrupted the workforce. I mean, there was a time that, people were talking, what are the switchboard operators going to do? Like, warehouses full of people who are relaying phone calls, right? You used to call up, you talk to the operator, hey, pass me to the Chicago. They pull wires out and put them in another one. And there was all these women all over the damn warehouse and switchboard operations going on. And they said, man, once this, technology has changed and we don't need this anymore, All these women are going to be unemployed. What are they going to do? There's going to be massive unemployment from all these. Well, yeah, there was. But what happened? They went and got educated, started becoming doctors and lawyers and politicians and stuff. Like, that was probably one of the greatest things that ever happened to the women's movement, was to get them out of warehouses doing worthless jobs of switchboard operation and get them out there and actively doing something real with their life. Like, to me, it wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing. It was a great thing. Right? And just like AI is going to be a good thing too. It sucks for those who lose their job, and I agree with that, and I'm going to be one of them eventually. But I'm not that worried about it. I mean, there's something else going on in this world that would allow me to then be more useful, more abundant, more better, in every way. So AI's cool. Bring it on. Let it happen. The future is more competitive than the past and present. AI robots will do dishes and clean asses so people have more time for social media. If you're concerned about AI, you should check your own personal disposition. If you see a poor future, it means you're probably a pessimistic person. Well, I agree with you, Justin. I would agree on that entirely. In fact, it's probably because of AI, and even people asking me if I'm an AI generated video or something like that, which I think is pretty comical. Like, why would anybody want to try and AI generate like this? Well, like, yeah, that's cool. But I think that's really where I think, like, a lot of people are returning back to, like, kind of the roots idea, like having conversations with people face to face, or not the, how do I put it, commercialized, glamored over, propagandized information. People just want to have a real conversation with other people. And I think that's why this channel does as well as it is. Like, I mean, how many people would just, do it from a 97 Suburban and talk about high level macroeconomics this kind of way? Like, not very many, but I've always been real with you guys. I've never tried to fake it. Like, I can't fake it. Like, there's nothing I can fake. Like, what was I going to do? This was like, look how awesome I am. I can't prove it, in any ways. This is the only thing I can prove, is what I got going on. And, it worked out pretty well for me. Like, I don't have to worry about being exposed, Like old Liver King, right? Yeah. I saw the Netflix thing on that. Oh my gosh. All right. And that's where I think, like, the fakery. People try and, like, again, pulling the wool over your eyes. Right? Here, look how awesome I am. I'm 100% natural, ancestral energy, or whatever. Turns out he was just roiding it out, right? So, man, people don't like that. People like real. People like real, authentic behavior. Alrighty, guys. We're going to call it quits here in about 8 minutes. All right? We'll call it quits at 2 hours. Chat GTP is great for Bible studies. I actually am using Chat GPT right now and basically training one in the credible threat theory. And now it's pretty cool because I can give it articles and say, hey, go through this article and show me where the credible threat theory is relevant. And it's pretty good because, like, sometimes I'll actually get back some stuff that it finds, and I'm like, yeah, man, it is dialing in the credible threat theory. I do have to constantly, like, correct it and fix it, as far as, it seems to want to fall back to the narrative, like, trying to use, like, the idea that the Fed is trying to get to a 2% target. And then once I kind of reiterate it again and again into the chat, and showed it again, like, it's moderately above 2%. Now I find where it's, like, automatically doing that. I'm like, holy crap, this thing is pretty good. Like, you can really train it to do all kinds of things. One of the fun things I did is I said, take, I think it was, who was it? It was like Peter Schiff and somebody else, like Ray Dalio or something like that, and do a mock debate between these two. And it was cool, like, seeing the stuff that came up from it. It's interesting some of the things you can come up with. Now, I don't know like how accurate any of the information that comes from it, because I found that AI isn't exactly that accurate in a lot of things, especially when it comes to like Google searches or something, or doing, internet searches. But it's pretty cool as far as compiling data into a unique form by giving it particular information. So I use Chat GPT to compare toilet paper crisis data in correlation with housing prices. Assignment, it's because AI is already a better attorney than any human lawyer or attorney could ever be, so it's not a good thing. It's just we're gonna use AI to fight all our legal battles. Whatever. I mean, the meaning that you put behind it is up to you. Good or bad thing, it's literally up to you. You give the meaning behind all the information. You're the one who decides whether or not it's a good or bad thing. I can't do that, neither can anybody else. And so when I think about AI being a good thing, I think about all the good things that can come from it. Are there horrible things? Sure, I can sit around and think about all the horrible things, the draconian, all the tracking and tracing and taxing, from the idea of crypto to AI to all the other stuff that comes along with it. I totally see where that could be the case. But I choose not to look at it that way, because I want to look at it with an attitude that says I can use this information to better myself. How is that? Right? Yeah, all the other stuff is there and exists and is true, and I'm not trying to deny it. What I'm trying to say is that by focusing in on it, you will definitely cause it to take place in your life. Like, there was a time I thought the New World Order was going to basically destroy everything out there. Destroy everybody's livelihoods, keep you from actually being successful, keep you from being profitable. You're going to be a debt slave your entire life, and that's exactly the life I was living. Weird. When I gave up on it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give up on this whole idea of all this conspiracy theory stuff. I'm going to follow the money, just focus in on the money and not take my eyes off the money. And that's the only thing I'm going to really pay attention to, because all the rest of the conspiracy theory stuff, I can't change. I can't change anything in my life other than just to say, you're not that important to me anymore. Once I said that, I said, yeah, you guys exist. Yeah, you guys are all the problems that are out there. But I'm going to use the information that I'm gathering to better myself regardless of your existence. Talking about the New World Order. All of a sudden, they weren't my problem anymore. Weird. Huh, I guess I made them my problem. Just like people can make AI their problem. Or you can make it your benefit. You can make it something that's worthy and good and useful in your life, or figure out a way to do something else in your life that says, hey, I finally freed up to do what it is that I want to do. Okay, we got like 3 more minutes, guys. Any more questions? Anything we want to cover before we call it quits? AI is a good attorney by quoting non-existent cases. All right, if you thought the internet was bad, AI is saying, hold my beer. I didn't think the internet is bad. I think the internet's good. I think the internet is awesome. I mean, it completely changed my life and made everything wonderful for me. I don't like it. Getting sleepy. Yeah, I'm getting sleepy too. All right. When Elon Musk began to do a push for advertise his small boxable Casada foldable homes online, all of a sudden it makes you wonder why. So do human lawyers make crap up too? AI is still stupid, but just wait. I don't think it is, and I think it's actually pretty useful. So anyway, they can't do what you participate in. It's all head trip. Pull your heads out of their butts. Okay, because we've never heard of a human attorney lying or twisting the truth, or quoting hallucinating, or a quote hallucinating. Yeah, I don't know. I guess a lot of people are upset with AI and the idea of AI. I'm not. I'm cool with it. I'm just bring it on. Let's, figure out what the next thing we need to do with our lives is in order to conduct ourselves. Because, if AI is going to take our employment away and take our jobs away, then that's just going to free us up to do whatever it is that we truly needed to do with our life. And I really think that. Like, I do. I look throughout history. I see all the technologies that came in that, got everybody all pissed off, the Luddites and whatnot, destroying the farm equipment because they were losing their jobs. Same thing. It's just like they hate technology for the idea that it destroys their current way of life. Well, everything changes. Everything is a constant state of change. And the idea that, bringing in technologies is a bad thing, I don't believe that. I believe it's a good thing. I've used technology. I'm not even really big into technologies. I'm not a computer techie kind of dude, like that's not me. I have this cell phone. I did everything with it, and I used the cell phone and the internet and the platforms like YouTube in order to advance myself and have a better way of life. Like, this is a good thing. Don't deny it. Embrace it. It's an awesome thing. If you're worrying about AI, take your job, then focus on paying off or reducing your debt. Yeah. All right. There's plenty of work to do in the world. What is that? I'm sure AI and robots won't do it all. I listened to a kid the other day. He's 16. Him and his dad were doing some live music. And I was listening to this kid play the piano and sing. It was so awesome. I don't care how good it sounded. AI would never have been as awesome as listening to those two guys playing that music. That 16-year-old kid and his dad, that dad and his son playing that music, they were having a great time together. The kid was super talented. The father was too. Like, they were just blasting it out there, having a great time. Everybody who was listening to the music was having a wonderful time, right? Really vibing with the crowd and the energy that was all being felt there. AI couldn't generate that, right? Like, it might be able to get a little bit of it, and some people might get into it a little bit, but not like we were experiencing there. The little mistakes, the feedback on the mic, the, being too loud or, too quiet or something, like all that experience, man. It was so awesome. And with AI, nah, not as good. Not as good. Like, it's pretty good. They do good stuff and it's entertaining, but not like that. You can't make it like that because it was rough. There's rough edges to grab a hold of. AI doesn't have that. It can, but not the same. It's not the same. All right. Music biz doesn't like AI. No, like the commercial music business doesn't like AI. Those two, AI doesn't affect them, right? They're doing live music. People came to listen to two people play music live. AI, no matter how much you put advancements into technology and all that, AI cannot generate two guys playing live music with feedback and the rough edges and the mistakes and everything else that gives it the uniqueness that people appreciate and love and respect. AI can program that in there to make you feel like it's authentic and real, but deep down it's not, and it's not the same. Are we done yet, guys? We're 2 minutes over the 2-hour mark. I believe that we have fulfilled tonight's live stream. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate you guys sticking it out for the entire 2 hours. 223 people watching with 223 likes. I love it when that's the same. I got another like there. Appreciate it. $32 in super chats because you guys are always so generous and so supportive of the Uneducated Economist, keeping this channel independent, keeping this channel active, and not only keeping me motivated, but keeping me in the realms of constantly learning and sharing that knowledge with you guys so that we can all be making the best decisions for ourselves, right? Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.